The year was 2341, and the galaxy was tired of war. For almost 2 centuries, the Interstellar Council had tried to keep peace among the hundreds of alien civilizations spread across the Orion Arm. They had signed treaties, enforced trade laws, and punished pirates. But now a problem had appeared that no law, no army, and no diplomacy could solve. It was called the Black Rift. The rift was not a place anyone could map. It moved, shifting through the deep void between the stars like a shadow that didn't belong. Sometimes it was there, sometimes it was gone. And when it appeared, ships that passed too close never came back. At first, the Council had ignored it. Space was big. A dangerous anomaly here, or there wasn't new. But then the disappearances grew. Freighters, warships, research vessels. Whole fleets. And the last transmissions from those doomed ships. Just static. And sometimes faint sounds, whispers, screams. Nobody knew what caused it. Nobody had seen what lived inside it. Every time a rescue mission was sent, the rescuers vanished too. After losing 5 fleets, the Council stopped sending help, but the rift kept moving. And now, it was on a collision course with a major trade route used by 50 alien worlds. If they did nothing, billions of people would be cut off from food, medicine, and supplies. That's when the Council made an announcement. The Grand Assembly Hall on Vega Prime was packed with delegates, tall insectoid diplomats with glassy wings, fur-covered warriors from the ice worlds, sleek aquatic beings kept in hovering water spheres. The air buzzed with fear and tension. At the center, standing on the raised silver platform, was High Chancellor Saraxi, a tall, 4-armed alien with skin like cracked marble. His voice boomed through the chamber. "We require a volunteer," Saraxi declared. "1 ship, 1 pilot. The mission: enter the Black Rift, find out what is inside, and, if possible, destroy it." A wave of nervous murmurs filled the hall. The idea was madness. It was suicide. Saraxi continued. "The rift destroys fleets. This time we will send only 1. A small ship may survive longer. The pilot will be given full resources, advanced technology, and a lifetime of rewards. If they return." The murmurs became outright laughter in some corners. In others, the silence was heavy with fear. "Who will volunteer?" the Chancellor asked. Nobody moved. The delegates avoided his gaze. Some pretended to check their data slates. Others whispered excuses to their neighbors. A 6-eyed reptilian captain muttered, "Better to be executed than sent into that thing." The High Chancellor's voice grew sharper. "Come now. Among the brave warriors of the galaxy, is there not one willing to face the rift?" Still no one moved. 5 long minutes passed, and then a voice rang out from the far back of the hall. "I'll do it." The crowd turned. Standing at the very edge of the assembly floor was a man in a simple black pilot's jacket. No armor, no ceremonial robe. Just plain, human clothes. He looked small compared to the towering alien delegates, maybe 5'10", lean but strong. His hair was short and messy, his jaw covered with the shadow of a beard. His eyes were calm, almost too calm for someone volunteering for death. His name was Elias Ward. A ripple of disbelief moved through the hall. "A human?" someone whispered. "From Earth?" another scoffed. "They're still a Tier 3 civilization. They can't even fight properly." "Yes," laughter spread, but Elias didn't flinch. The High Chancellor tilted his head. "You volunteer?" "I do," Elias said simply. A large, insectoid captain with translucent wings stepped forward, his mandibles clicking in amusement. "You won't last an hour, human." "Do you even know what's inside the rift?" "No," Elias said. "But I know that sitting here won't solve anything." The captain's wings buzzed in mockery. "Your species has no history in deep space combat, no mastery of psionics, No bioshields. Why should we trust you with this? Elias smiled faintly. Because you've sent your best, and they all died. Maybe it's time you send someone you don't expect to win. That made some of the delegates pause. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. But he nodded slowly. Very well, human, you are accepted. But understand this, we will not send rescue. You will enter alone. You will leave alone, if you leave at all. Understood, Elias said. After the session ended, Elias was taken to the council's military docking ring, a massive station orbiting Vega Prime. The corridors were filled with alien crews working on sleek, advanced warships. As Elias walked past, they stared, some with curiosity, some with open ridicule. Two reptilian engineers whispered loudly as he passed. That's the one? The human? Yes, they say he's volunteering to die. Strange species. In the hangar bay, his assigned ship awaited him. It was small, barely larger than a heavy fighter, but its black hull gleamed with council tech. A technician approached him, a short, gray-skinned alien with 4 eyes. Your craft is equipped with stealth plating, gravitic dampeners, and an experimental navigation AI. The council is giving you every chance to survive. But it will not save you if you make mistakes, Elias nodded. Good. I don't plan on making mistakes. As the techs worked on final checks, the insectoid captain from earlier appeared again, holding Elias' old helmet, scratched and dented from years of use. This? You're taking this into the rift? We could give you a new model human. Elias took the helmet from his hands. This one has been with me for years. I trust it. The captain's antennae twitched. Sentimental. That will get you killed. Elias put the helmet under his arm and smiled. Maybe, or maybe it's the reason I'll come back. The captain stared at him for a moment, then shook his head and walked away. That night, Elias sat alone in the small quarters they had given him. He stared at a map of the galaxy on his datapad, a map with a dark, shifting void moving slowly toward the trade route. He had read every report the council gave him. He had memorized the last words of captains who had gone before him. And he had noticed something, a pattern that none of the alien analysts had caught. He wasn't just going into the rift blind. He had a plan no alien would think of, because sometimes, to survive the impossible, you needed something other than strength or speed. You needed something else entirely, and humans had plenty of it. The next morning, the docking bay echoed with the sound of sirens as his ship was prepared for launch. Alien crews lined the edges of the bay to watch. Some whispered bets on how long he'd last. Elias walked to his ship, his helmet on, his jacket zipped. He climbed into the cockpit without looking at the crowd. Over the the High Chancellor's voice came through. Human pilot Elias Ward, the mission begins now. May your courage be rewarded. The hangar doors opened. Beyond them, the black, endless void of space. The ship's engines rumbled to life. Elias pushed the throttle forward, and the craft drifted into the darkness. Behind him, the docking bay slowly closed. Ahead of him, far away but growing closer every second, the black rift waited. Elias allowed himself the smallest of smiles, and whispered to himself, "Let's see what's hungry inside there." The docking bay doors sealed behind Elias's ship, and silence fell. Only the soft hum of the engines filled the cockpit. Outside, the stars drifted by in perfect stillness, sharp points of light in the endless dark. The black rift was still, hours away, but Elias could already feel its pull. He leaned back in his seat, letting the autopilot guide the ship through the safe lanes out of Vega Prime's orbit. Then, over the comms, a voice crackled in, sharp, dry, and buzzing with insectoid undertones. "Human, this is Captain Vorak. You can still turn back." Elias didn't answer right away. He knew the voice. Vorak was the insectoid captain who had mocked him in the council chamber. "I thought you said I wouldn't last an hour," Elias replied. A faint clicking laugh came through the line. I still think that, but now I'm curious. I have a wager with the other officers. Some think you will die before you even see the rift. I am giving you slightly more credit. Elias smirked. Generous of you. Vorak's tone sharpened. You do not understand what waits inside. It is not just darkness, human. It is a hunger. A thing older than your species. We have sent warriors, mages, psionic masters. All failed. Why should you, with your primitive ship and your fragile body, succeed? Because I'm not them, Elias said simply. Vorak hissed something in his own language, then cut the connection. Elias leaned forward, fingers dancing across the controls. The navigation AI spoke softly in his ear, a smooth, almost human voice. Pilot Ward, arrival at Black Rift perimeter in 3 hours, 21 minutes. Shall I prepare long-range scans? No scans, Elias said. Not yet. Just keep engines steady and quiet. Understood. He checked the storage compartments in the back of the cockpit. Alongside the standard council tech, plasma rifles, shield generators, survival rations, were a few items he had smuggled aboard himself. An old, Earth-made EMP device, a hardened analog compass, and a small metal box, dented and scratched. With no digital components at all. To most alien engineers, they were useless junk. To Elias, they were insurance. By the time the rift appeared on the edge of the viewport, Elias could already see why the aliens feared it. It wasn't just a patch of darkness. It moved, a swirling wound in the stars, like someone had torn open space and left it bleeding shadow. The edges rippled, distorting light, bending reality like heat over desert sand. Even the navigation AI's calm tone shifted slightly. Warning. Approaching high anomaly zone. Recommend full shield activation. Not yet, Elias said. He slowed the ship, letting it drift closer at a cautious pace. The rift's pull was stronger now, like invisible fingers tugging at the hull. The comms crackled again. This time, it wasn't Vorak. It was the Council's mission overseer, Pilot Ward. This is command. You are now the closest living being to the rift in 36 cycles. Do you have visual confirmation? Elias studied the churning dark. On his screen. Yeah, I see it. Proceed when ready, and good luck. The channel went dead. Inside the docking bay on Vega Prime, alien crews gathered around massive holoscreens, watching the live telemetry from Elias's ship. Some whispered in their own languages, making bets. Others simply shook their heads. Vorak stood apart, his arms crossed, watching with cold curiosity. The human will panic soon, he muttered to a reptilian officer beside him. They all do. But Elias didn't panic. He took a deep breath, switched the ship to manual, and pushed the throttle forward. The rift swallowed the ship. For a moment, the cockpit was plunged into absolute darkness. No stars, no light, nothing. Then faint glimmers began to appear outside the canopy, like drifting sparks, except they weren't sparks. They were fragments of ships, alien vessels torn apart, floating in slow, eerie silence. Some still had their lights on, flickering weakly. Others were little more than twisted metal. A shadow passed between them, massive and serpentine. Elias's grip on the controls tightened. There you are, he whispered. The AI's voice came through again. Unidentified object detected. Approximate length, 3.2 kilometers. Structure, unknown. Life signs, multiple but inconsistent. Don't scan too much, Elias muttered. We don't want to wake it up. The thing drifted closer, still half hidden in the dark. It moved with the slow, confident grace of an apex predator. And then, without warning, it changed direction. Straight toward him. Elias cut the engines instantly. The ship went dark, every system except life support shutting down. He floated silently, breath slow, watching the massive shape approach. Its body coiled and uncoiled through the void, its surface shimmering like liquid shadow. It stopped just short of the ship, tilting its head, if that was its head, toward the cockpit. Too fast. Pale eyes opened. Elias didn't move. The creature lingered for what felt like minutes, studying him. Then it drifted away, vanishing into the debris. Field, the AI whispered. Threat level, extreme. Evasive maneuvers advised. Not yet, Elias said again. Let it think we're nothing. Back in the Vega Prime control room, the alien crews were stunned. Why isn't he firing? Why hasn't he raised shields? One aquatic delegate asked. Varrock's mandibles clicked in irritation. Because he's a fool, and fools die quietly. But deep down, Varrock wasn't sure anymore. Elias slowly powered the ship back on, only the bare essentials, keeping his energy signature as low as possible. He wasn't here to fight. Not yet. He was here to watch. Hours passed. He followed the drifting wreckage deeper into the rift, noting patterns, the way certain debris fields seemed undisturbed, while others were shredded to dust. He was beginning to understand something. The creature didn't destroy everything. It hunted selectively. That meant it was intelligent. That also meant it could be fooled. Elias allowed himself a small smile beneath his helmet. The aliens thought the rift was unbeatable because they'd only tried the same thing over and over. Attack, defend, flee. But humans had always been good at one thing. Playing a game the enemy didn't know was being played. And somewhere, far beyond the wreckage, the pale eyes opened again in the dark, watching him. The rift was not quiet. At first, Elias had thought it was. No engine noise, no radio chatter, just the hum of his ship. But as his eyes adjusted to the shifting dark, he began to hear it. A faint, distant sound, like whispers. Like someone speaking through a wall of static. The more he listened, the more he realized they weren't random. They were voices. The navigation AI broke the silence. Pilot Ward, environmental readings are unstable. Gravity fluctuations increasing. Recommend altering course. Negative, Elias said, keeping his eyes on the debris field ahead. Stay on current path. Keep all active scans off. The AI hesitated, as much as a machine could hesitate. Acknowledged, passive observation only. Elias drifted past the wreck of a massive alien cruiser. Its hull was torn open like paper. Edges curled outward, metal warped and twisted. Something had done this from the inside. And then he saw them, frozen bodies, drifting in the void. Alien crew members, faces twisted in fear, eyes wide open. Some were missing limbs. Others had their chests hollowed out. He gritted his teeth and looked. Away. In the control room on Vega Prime, alien technicians zoomed in on his feed. Why is he not retrieving samples? A fur-covered officer S.V.O.R. rack, standing with arms crossed, didn't look away from the screen. Because he is smarter than you think. He knows the creature is still near. Elias continued deeper. His ship sliding between the shattered remains of vessels from dozens of species. The rift felt alive. The shadows shifted like waves on an unseen ocean, moving in patterns that didn't make sense. And every so often, in the corner of his vision, he caught a flash of pale light. The eyes watching. The voices in his headset grew louder, clearer. He began to hear words in languages he didn't speak, and in some he did. Help us. It's hungry. Run. Elias knew better than to answer. Every survival instinct told him those voices weren't real, or, if they were, they weren't from the living. He shut off the COM receiver completely. Then the temperature dropped. The cockpit glass began to frost at the edges, the moisture in the air freezing instantly. The ship's temperature regulator fought to keep up, but the cold kept bleeding in, unnatural and sharp. Pilot Ward, the AI said. Thermal readings indicate external temperature at minus 200 degrees Celsius. This is beyond recorded rift anomaly data. Elias glanced at the viewport. The eyes were closer now. The creature drifted into view, slowly, deliberately, like it had all the time in the universe. Its body was long and coiled, made of shadow and shifting shapes that seemed to ripple through each other. Its skin, if it was skin, absorbed light instead of reflecting it. It circled the ship, not attacking, just watching. Elias stayed perfectly still, engines off, hands away from the weapons controls. In the Vega Prime control room, tension rippled through the crowd. Why is it not killing him? A crystalline delegate asked. It kills everything. Vorik tilted his head. Perhaps it is curious. Then, without warning, the creature opened its mouth. It didn't have teeth. It didn't need them. Inside was only darkness, deeper and more complete than the space around them. And from that darkness, the whispers came louder, flooding the comms even though Elias had shut them off. Come closer, join us. It's warm here. Elias shut his eyes for 3 seconds, forcing himself to breathe slow. He'd read about predators back on Earth, sharks, tigers that tested their prey before striking. This was no different. The creature moved away slightly, still circling. Elias decided it was time to test something of his own. He reached over to the side panel and slowly engaged the smallest thruster burst, so weak it barely moved the ship. The creature stopped circling. It followed. Good. For the next hour, Elias played a dangerous game, letting the creature follow him while weaving through the debris field. He mapped its movements in his head, noting how it reacted to changes in speed, direction, and distance. Every so often, it would disappear completely, then reappear ahead of him. It was fast. Too fast to outrun. So running wasn't the plan. He guided the ship toward a cluster of wreckage denser than the rest. The remains of at least 10 ships, all tangled together like a giant spider's web. The creature hesitated at the edge, drifting back slightly. Elias's eyes narrowed. You don't like this place, do you? He eased the ship inside. The tangled wreckage made the path narrow, forcing him to maneuver carefully. Behind him, the creature remained at the edge, its pale eyes glowing faintly. The AI spoke quietly. Observation. The entity avoids the densest debris clusters. Possible. Explanation. Difficulty navigating or presence of the threat. Log it, Elias said, and mark this location. For the next several hours, Elias explored the rift further, always careful to keep his ship quiet, always watching for those eyes in the dark. He found more patterns, debris fields that seemed deliberately arranged, bodies untouched while others were destroyed. It was a hunting ground, and he was inside it. But the longer he stayed, the more he felt it. Not fear. Not exactly. Something else. The rift wasn't just a place. It was aware, and it was watching him as much as he was watching it. Then the IS voice cut through his thoughts, sharp and urgent. Warning, massive energy surge detected. Source, the entity. Estimated intercept in 45 seconds. Elias's head snapped toward the viewport. The creature was no longer at a distance. It was charging straight toward him, body coiling and uncoiling like a snake in water. He powered up the engines and dove into the wreckage cluster. The creature followed this time. Metal screeched against the hull as Elias squeezed through gaps barely wider than his ship. The AI called out collision warnings, but he ignored them. The creature forced its way in, tearing wreckage apart with each movement. Pieces of shattered hull spun away into the dark. Elias swerved hard, diving through a gap under a broken cruiser. Wing. The creature lunged and got stuck, its massive body twisted, parts wedged between 2 ancient battleships. Elias didn't wait. He pushed the engines to maximum, blasting out of the cluster. When he finally slowed down, the rift around him was calm again, but he knew it wouldn't stay that way. The game had just changed. The creature had shown him something important. It wasn't invincible. It could be trapped. And if it could be trapped, it could be killed. Elias smiled faintly under his helmet. "Round one's over," he muttered. "Now let's see if you survive round two." Elias's ship floated silently in the empty darkness of the rift. The wreckage around him was still tangled like a giant web, but the great shadowy creature was nowhere in sight. For a moment, all was quiet. The silence was almost too much. Elias didn't relax. Instead, he leaned forward and carefully studied his instruments. His eyes flicked between the glowing control panels and the black void. Beyond the cockpit window, the ship's sensors reported no immediate danger. But Elias knew better. The creature was still close, watching, waiting. The cold in the ship crept in through the vents. He pulled his jacket tighter. The temperature inside was dropping steadily. Life support is holding, but the external cold is creeping in faster than expected, the ship's AI said softly. Elias nodded. "Keep it stable," he told the AI. "We're not finished yet." His fingers brushed over the side panel where he kept a small battered device, an old EMP generator from Earth's long past. It was crude, but it worked. The kind of technology the advanced alien species had long forgotten or dismissed. He thought about his ancestors, how humans, throughout history, had survived and won by using their brains instead of just strength. When others charged blindly, humans fought smart. Elias remembered the stories his grandfather told him about how fishermen avoided sharks by playing dead, or how soldiers used deception to confuse larger armies. That was the key. Not to fight the creature with weapons alone, but to trick it. He checked the ship's systems again, making sure everything was ready. The EMP device was connected to a special launcher built into the ship's hull, a backup in case things went wrong, but Elias hoped he wouldn't need it. Back in the Council's control room, the atmosphere was tense. Alien commanders gathered around holoscreens, showing live feed from Elias's ship. Some were whispering nervously, others shaking their heads. Captain Vorak stood among them, arms crossed. He didn't speak, but his antennae twitched with curiosity. "He's not like the others," a furred officer said quietly. "He doesn't act scared or desperate." Vorak said nothing, but inside he was beginning to wonder if the human had a chance. Deep inside the rift, Elias floated closer to a massive cluster of debris. Broken ships twisted together like a ruined city. The creature had stayed at the edge of this area before, avoiding the tight spaces. Elias's plan was simple but dangerous. He switched off the ship's main engines completely, letting it drift silently into the wreckage. The creature didn't follow at once. Instead, it circled outside. Watching Elias could almost feel its ancient, hungry eyes boring into him. Suddenly, a strange sound filled the cockpit, low and rumbling. Elias tensed. The AI whispered, "Unidentified energy signature detected. Creature is active." Then, without warning, the ship's systems flickered. Power surged and died. Systems went offline, then returned. The creature was trying to jam the ship's electronics. Elias clenched his fists. The creature had technology, or some power, beyond his understanding, but he had a trick of his own. Elias reached for the EMP launcher. If the creature disrupted his systems, he would respond in kind. He triggered the device, sending a silent pulse. Through the nearby area, the pulse rippled through the wreckage, shutting down the creature's energy fields for a few precious seconds. In those moments, Elias powered up his engines and sped deeper into the tangled debris. The creature roared in frustration, but it couldn't follow fast enough through the tight spaces. Elias's heart raced. He had bought time. Moving carefully, Elias guided his ship through narrow passages, dodging twisted metal and drifting bodies. Every sound echoed in the cockpit. Every shadow moved just beyond the edge of his vision. The creature's eyes followed him, glowing faintly in the dark. Elias knew he couldn't outrun it forever, but he didn't have to. He had to be smarter. After hours of maneuvering, Elias found what he was looking for, an old abandoned ship. Bigger than his own dot, it was a relic from the earliest days of space travel, covered in rust and corrosion. Inside, the ship's energy core still flickered weakly. Elias smiled beneath his helmet. This was the trap. He carefully set the ship's course to dock with the abandoned vessel. Once connected, he sealed the airlock and climbed into the other ship. The interior was dark and cold. Dust covered every surface. Elias moved quickly, searching for the energy core. When he found it, he attached a series of explosive charges connected to a timer. If the creature attacked, the charges would detonate, destroying the entire wreckage cluster. It was risky. If the creature realized the trap early, Elias would be caught inside the explosion. But he had no choice. Returning to his own ship, Elias closed the airlock and prepared for the final phase of his plan. He activated the stealth systems and waited. Minutes passed like hours. Then, the creature arrived. It moved closer, coiling around the debris cluster. Elias held his breath. Creature's massive form writhed as it sensed the explosives. Then, Elias fired the timer. A countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The charges exploded in a deafening blast. Light and heat filled the void. Metal tore apart. The creature screamed, a terrible, unearthly sound. Elias's ship shook as the blast wave hit. He powered up the engines and escaped the cluster just in time. Outside, the rift seemed to tremble. The creature vanished into the darkness, wounded and angry. Elias allowed himself a brief moment of relief. But he knew the fight was far from over. Back on Vega Prime, the Council's control room erupted in stunned silence. Vorok's eyes widened. The human had done the impossible. He had fought the creature on its own terms and survived. Elias smiled under his helmet. He was just getting started. The explosion had rocked the rift like a thunderclap in space. Elias's ship trembled from the blast's shockwave as he pushed the engines to full power, fleeing the crumbling debris cluster. The black void outside glittered with shards of metal and sparks from broken ships, caught in the destruction. But the creature was still alive. It was angry, more dangerous than ever before. Inside his cockpit, Elias's breath was steady, his eyes sharp. The cold that had once threatened to freeze the ship now felt distant. His heart hammered with a new kind of energy. Hope. He had hurt the beast, but that was only the beginning. I run a full scan of the area. Look for signs of the creature, Elias ordered, scanning. The AI's smooth voice replied. Moments later, multiple life signatures detected large energy readings. The creature is nearby and moving fast. Elias gritted his teeth. The fight wasn't over. It was evolving, outside the viewport. The rift swirled with dark clouds of space dust and ghostly lights. The creature's shadow slipped through the haze, distant but growing. Elias adjusted his course, heading deeper into the rift's heart where no one had dared go before. His plan was risky. The creature was faster, stronger, and more mysterious than any foe he'd faced. But he had learned something important. It was curious, intelligent, and cautious. That meant it could be tricked. Elias activated a small drone from his cargo bay, a sleek, silent machine equipped with sound and light projectors. He programmed it to mimic his ship's signature and sent it drifting slowly toward the rift's dark center. The creature took the bait. As the drone floated ahead, lights flickering and engines humming softly. Elias tracked the creature's movement. It uncoiled like a great serpent and rushed toward the drone with terrifying speed. Elias smiled beneath his helmet. It was time to act. He powered down his ship's engines and dropped into stealth mode. Hiding among the drifting wreckage, the creature struck the drone, tearing it apart with a furious roar. But Elias wasn't watching the drone anymore. He was watching the creature, tracking its movements and weaknesses. Using his ship's gravitic thrusters, Elias quietly maneuvered around the creature's blind spots, the areas its eyes couldn't see clearly. He edged closer, heart pounding, hands steady on the controls. Suddenly, The creature whipped its massive tail. Elias barely dodged the crushing strike, feeling the shockwave in the ship's hull. Warning, structural damage detected, the AI warned. Elias cursed but kept his focus. He remembered an old Earth tactic when fighting a snake. Attack its head or tail, its most vulnerable spots. He would need to use every ounce of human courage and cunning to survive. Elias engaged the ship's magnetic grapplers, special devices, designed to latch onto large objects with careful precision. He launched the grapplers and hooked them onto the creature's tail. The creature thrashed wildly, trying to shake him off, but the grapplers held firm, with the creature momentarily anchored. Elias fired his ship's plasma harpoons sharp, powerful bolts designed to pierce thick armor. They struck the creature's tail with sizzling impact. The creature screamed a sound that shook the very air inside the cockpit. But the beast was not defeated. It twisted and coiled fiercely, trying to break free. Elias felt his ship's hull creak under the strain. Then, from the ship's cargo bay, Elias deployed the final weapon, an old Earth-made nuclear pulse mine. It was crude and dangerous, but it was the best chance he had. Elias set the mine's timer and carefully navigated closer to the creature's tangled body. The creature's glowing eyes locked onto him, rage burning brighter than ever. With a deep breath, Elias launched the mine into the creature's coils. The device clung to the shadowy surface and began its countdown. 3.2.1. The mine exploded in a brilliant flash, sending a pulse of energy rippling through the rift. The creature howled in agony, its massive body convulsing as the blast tore through it. Elias was thrown back by the force, but quickly regained control. The creature writhed in pain, weakened, but not dead. It gave one final roar, a sound full of fury and warning, then retreated into the shadows. The rift fell silent once more. Elias slumped in his seat, exhausted but victorious. He had done what no one else could. He had turned the tables. Back on Vega Prime, the council watched in stunned silence as Elias's ship transmitted images of the wounded creature retreating. Vorok's mandibles clicked. In disbelief. "Humans," he muttered. "They do not fight like others." Elias allowed himself a brief smile. He was still deep inside the rift, but for the first time, he knew he could win. The impossible mission was becoming possible. The black void outside. Elias's cockpit was quieter than it had ever been. The once terrifying creature had vanished into the depths of the rift, wounded and defeated for now. Elias sat back, exhaustion washing over him like a cold wave. He had done the impossible, survived the impossible mission, and fought the ancient horror that haunted the galaxy's deadliest place. But now, a new challenge awaited. Getting home. The rift was still unstable. The swirling shadows and shifting gravity threatened to trap anything that tried to escape. The ship's navigation AI beeped softly. "Pilot Ward, the rift is collapsing. You have limited time to exit before permanent closure." Elias's eyes narrowed. He knew this was the final test. He punched in the fastest course out, but the rift fought back, bending space around him, slowing his ship. Fragments of debris floated past, like silent ghosts, reminders of those who hadn't made it. Elias's thoughts drifted to them, the countless crews lost to the darkness. He whispered a quiet promise. "I'll make sure you didn't die in vain." The ship shook violently as gravity waves buffeted the hull. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The AI's voice was calm but urgent. "Structural integrity compromised. Recommend immediate emergency protocols." Elias gritted his teeth and activated the emergency thrusters. The engines roared, pushing the ship toward the rift's edge. Outside the viewport, the stars warped and twisted. Space itself seemed to fight against his escape. Suddenly, a violent pulse rocked the ship, an explosion from within the rift's core. The creature's dying roar echoed faintly through the void. Elias knew it was over, but the rift wasn't done yet. A final wave of energy surged toward him, an invisible force trying to pull him back. Elias fought the controls, pushing the ship's systems beyond limits. His hands trembled, but did not falter. Minutes felt like hours. And then light. The stars returned to their normal shine. The ship broke free from the rift's grip. Elias exhaled deeply for the first time. In days. Back at Vega Prime, alarms sounded as the Council's monitoring stations lit up. Contact! Someone shouted. Elias's ship appeared on the long-range sensors, moving steadily toward the station. As he docked, crews rushed to greet him. Vorik was among them, his mandibles clicking in respect. "You have changed everything, human," he said quietly. Elias smiled tiredly. "I just did what needed to be done." In the Grand Assembly Hall, the Council declared Elias a hero. His story spread across the galaxy of a human who faced death, the unknown, and returned victorious. But Elias knew this was only the beginning. The rift was still there. The creature was wounded but alive. And somewhere out there, in the dark, other dangers waited. For now, Elias looked out at the stars with hope. He had proven that even the smallest, simplest life could face the impossible and survive. He had shown the galaxy the strength of humanity, not just in muscle or technology, but in spirit. And that strength was just waking up.